I apologize for the delay. Could we have a roll call, please? Oh, need to be on air first.
Yes, good morning. Chair Balte,
Present, finally.
Vice Chair Thompson, here. Board Member Liu,
Here.
and Board Member Hirsch.
Here.
Great, thank you, all present.
Thank you. First item on our agenda is oral communications. If there's any members of the public who would like to address us. I don't see anybody. Next item is agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Do we have anything, Jody? No? Official reports. Alicia Spotwood, what can we say?
Yes, so I just wanted, Alicia's not able to make it this morning. She's on to her next job duties. But I did really want to thank her for her 19 years of service to the ARB. I hadn't realized it was that long until I was talking to her. And she said she started on her very first day. So we now have Vin, who is starting on his very first day, handling the ARB. And so any questions that you have, probably best to sort of email the both of us. And then Vin will be sending out the packets to you and things like that.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you, Vin.
Likewise.
These are big shoes to fill. And then meeting schedule, Jody.
Yes, so we do have changes to the schedule. We thought we were going to have one item on the 19th. That project has been delayed. There's some parking things that we were working out, but there also seems to be some FEMA flood zone issues, that they might be going over the valuation and need to do additional work. So they're figuring that out. So we are not going to have a meeting at the middle of September.
Okay.
So that meeting will be canceled.
Wonderful. Okay, then we move on to our first action item. It's a public hearing about 180 El Camino Real, a request for architecture review to allow for modifications to the exterior storefronts and market plaza area for Segona's Market, Schaub's Meat and Fish and Poultry, Coca-Cola Bakery, along with changes to the service entrance facade at Building E within the Stanford Shopping Center. Before we start, do we have any disclosures? Alex?
I visited the site yesterday.
Ozma?
I've been to the site.
David?
Visited the site yesterday.
Okay, likewise, I also visited the site and have nothing else to add. Okay, do we have a staff report on this?
Hello, good morning,
Good morning,
Board.
Sam.
Name's Samuel Gutierrez, Associate Planner and also known as the Stanford Shopping Center Planner, presenting yet another Stanford Shopping Center project to you. So we'll start with the title page here. These are you'll see a map here, and this is the area of the shopping center that's being worked on, and it involves 3 existing tenants, Schwab's, Coca-Cola's, and Segona's, and then also there's a common entrance that you may recall that's between the Melt and the Pacific Catch that leads to the internal corridors, back of house areas for the other tenants in Building E. So that's also included here, along with that what we call the market area plaza upgrades. So, well, that came out a little crooked, but hopefully you can see that. The project is to renovate existing facades for the market plaza tenants, the plaza site plan improvements, and facade improvements to the shopping center common areas I just mentioned. There's going to be new modern facade designs, new planters and tree row grates, new signage, and new exterior light fixtures. With this project, there's no changes to existing uses, tenants, floor area, coverage, parking and circulation. When it comes to vehicle parking and circulation, none of that's being impacted by this project. So here again, it's just an overview of the shopping center, and there's a highlighted triangle superimposed on the area where this project is located at. It is the main entry to the shopping center if you're coming off of Sand Hill. That'll lead you to the kind of core of the shopping center. This is a photo of the existing conditions. As you can see, there's a number of mature trees there in the plaza area. But peeking behind, you could see the Sigonia's storefront with the green awning kind of arrangement with the tan awnings where their fruit and vegetable stands are located. And then you'll see the Schwab's to the right of that, and that has the kind of barrel configured awning with a metal kind of trim piece. And then it's difficult to see, but you'll see on the far left, you'll see these tan arches on the building on the left, and that's where Coca-Cola's bakery is located. So to start the facade improvements, here's a better shot of Coca-Cola's. You can see the arches there, and you can see the proposed facade for Coca-Cola's bakery. They're going to utilize precast facade profiles, so then it'll change from the arch shape to rectangular, which actually mimics what Pacific Catch is currently constructing, again, from a few months ago. It's more rectangular, angular, rather than this smooth curved arches that they're going from. There will be these upper trellis planks that is internally illuminated. There's a new canopy. Instead of the existing canopy, which is metal and glass, this one will have metal and wood. Again, kind of tying in that upper wood facade design. And the existing plaster is going to be painted a combination of gray and beige. You can see that there. And there will be new wall-mounted sconces at kind of each of these new rectangular kind of precast concrete forms. You can see that kind of at each point of that rendering there. Here we see the Sigonia's facade and in the existing condition. It's mostly a blank wall on the facade tenant space. Really, the draw is the fruit stands and vegetable stands at the bottom beneath the awning. So the awning is going to get upgraded as well. It's going to this metal and wood also look with, again, an upper trellis wooden design, and it's utilizing tan and beige colors for the upper and lower facades. And the storefront trims are going to be in dark gray, and there is also new light fixtures on this facade. Here you'll see the Schwab's, which is mimicking the others, kind of tannish gray kind of combination, except that it has this unique graphic print, which is on the sample board that's before you. It gives it a unique look, but also maintains its character and differentiates it from the other tenants, that it is a different tenant. And again, it's this gray and beige kind of color combination throughout, using rectangular forms, cleaner awnings, going away from the existing canvas awning to a metal and wooden awning. There will be new exterior light sconces on the Schwab's as well. And then the recess entry, because Schwab's does have a considerable recess entry at the bottom, there's going to be new limestone kind of porcelain tiles flooring in there to kind of change over from the Market Plaza concrete floor to now you're entering into the Schwab's tenant space. It's kind of a transition. Here we can see the facade improvements for that common back of house area, which is between the Melt and Pacific Catch. On the left, you can see the existing condition. Again, it's the old arch, and it's being changed to this rectangular form, again, matching kind of Pacific Catch and then the greater market area with more rectangular forms. It is in this kind of neutral pattern, beige and light grays and kind of earth tones. It looks more modernized, but it also still looks like it's not a tenant space. It appears like it is a, employee space or some other access not for the public. In reviewing the project, staff considered the bicycle parking for the area. With all these upgrades, it's going to become more of a draw for this area with the Pacific Catch under construction, and then these 3 tennis spaces being renovated. We felt that there should be more bicycle parking located in this area. Now, on the Pacific Catch side of the marketplace, which is further up the drive aisle from this space, there's a number of bike racks that's going to be replaced there. They're taken out currently because of the construction, but they will be replaced. So that left side, if you're looking at this marketplace plaza from Sand Hill, is covered with short-term bicycle parking, but the right side didn't have any. So we proposed that we conditioned that 3 short-term bike racks be located here in this location. As you enter from Sand Hill at Plum Lane, it's currently in front of the Sprinkles location, so that would help increase the bicycle parking for the shopping center overall and for the capacity of bicycle parking in this location of the shopping center. Here's a site plan overview. You can see the mature trees there, and there is some new tree grates proposed. These are similar to those that were proposed for Pacific Catch. They're the heel-proof, so you could easily walk over them no matter what kind of shoes you're wearing, or if you have a stroller, or if you have some kind of walker or wheelchair, which expands the pedestrian walkable surface area. So that's an improvement to the plaza overall. And also included here is a location of planter boxes, new planter boxes in front of Schwab's and Segona's. In front of the Schwab's, you'll see these little green dots kind of at each pillar of the facade, and that's a small planter where the Segona's wraps around into the interior corridor of the shopping center. There's these larger planter boxes there, which currently don't exist. So again, this is a kind of an existing photo. You could see the tree wells don't have any kind of grates at all, so it does limit a bit of the walkable, comfortable surface, and the tree grates would be a significant improvement to this area. So just an overview of the kind of landscaping. The project proposes to retain all of the trees. None of the trees will be removed. They will remain. Again, the new planter boxes around Schwab's and Segona's. However, a landscape plan with the actual plant selection wasn't provided for the ARB to review. The size of the planters would be limited to would limit the total number of plants. Again, the planter boxes in front of Schwab's are small and probably for a singular plant, maybe some type of grass or something. It's shown on sheet A102. While the other planters, there are larger and provide some opportunity for some variation. So staff recommends that the board discuss the landscape options for this location. It is still limited. It's not very involved landscaping, so we would appreciate your feedback on that. Here's the signage, just some of the tenant spaces, again, the renderings, and currently there's 3 signs for Segona's, 4 for Schwab's, and 2 for Coca-Cola. Each tenant space has a blade sign, and then a main facade sign, and then a secondary facade sign. I'm not sure why there's some in the corner, but that's strange. One thing that was noted, though, is Schwab's main facade, which faces the Sand Hill kind of entry before it angles into the Market Plaza. There was a sign proposed to be directly above an existing bench, which is adjacent to the Sprinkles tenant space. That sign would not meet the master tenant facade guidelines for the shopping center, so that was conditioned to be removed because it would be a secondary sign on a primary wall. There is a similar sign on the other wall to the left of this rendering, and that is where secondary signs would go, so that would remain. So key considerations for the ARB would be the applicability of the policy documents, the master tenant facade and sign program, architectural design theme, cohesiveness and quality of the materials, and comments/feedback for the landscaping. Staff recommends that the ARB recommend approval to the proposed project to the Director of Planning and Development Services based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval, with a requirement for the landscaping selection to be reviewed and approved by the ARB subcommittee. That concludes staff presentation.
Thank you, Sam. Next, the applicant, do you have a presentation for us? You'll have 10 minutes to speak. Oh, can you wait till we finish?
Good morning, board members.
If you could state and spell your name for the record, and you'll have
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Jason Smith, Jason Smith, with Landshark Development Services.
Matt Woods with GHA Design, MATTWOODS.
Thank you.
I could start actually. Sam actually picked up on 90% of our design. We could speak to a little bit as to the why. This is an exterior design project for us, specifically looking at vertical surfaces and horizontal surfaces in this market area. The intention, I mean, as you know, if you've walked it, it's not grubby, but it's getting a little unsafe in some areas. You know, I personally have actually watched people trip in the landscape zone where the trees are sitting. So that's kind of driving a little bit. This wasn't initially part of the project. It was really an elevation project at first, and we kind of brought this part back. Our push and our goal, I think, is really to kind of get the hardscape going prior to, actually completed prior to shopping season, which is in November, and get all that taken care of, and then come back later and rework all the facades for the tenants, you know, after, obviously, shopping season. Again, the hardscape in this area would redo all new paving areas. Go to that one sheet. Next one. This kind of shows the boundaries of all the paving areas that start from Pacific Catch. They move around. Is there a pointer or something, or no? You can't do that. Right in front of Pacific Catch, there's one little tiny spot where we're adjusting the curb. That's to meet our 10-foot radius in front of the seating zone that's already out there. Everything else holds its line. We hold the lease lines. We hold the exterior facade lines. We're pulling back in the full depth of Sagona, and we move over to the other side of Schwab. There's a little tiny tiled area in there, which actually breaches their lease line. So we're going to do concrete hardscape up to their lease line, and from there in is really theirs, but we're going to finish that off for them with that concrete looking porcelain tile that you saw in the package. All new tree grates, something you can walk across. Like right now you can't navigate easily in a wheelchair or in a stroller, and of course with the furniture and stuff it shuffles around a little bit here and there, so we're trying to tidy all that stuff up and just make it very navigable and much cleaner. Maybe let's go to the exterior stuff. So we could talk real quick, the facades here, they're all existing tenants. They're existing storefronts, so we're not adjusting the storefronts. We're just going through and cleaning everything, repainting, resurfacing. All the stucco is going to be resurfaced, patched, repaired, and repainted, and then we've applied some sort of a trellis element in front of a few of them, sort of the facade, rearranged their signage so they have better visuals. The signage that you saw is all internally illuminated, but it's a halo, so it's not shining back out to the parking lot or back towards the street. There's a couple tiny letters that say like meat and fish and that. Those are pushed through acrylics, and they do shine, but they don't blast light the same way. So we're trying to keep everything kind of low-key, retail, you know, and pretty sharp looking. The Schaub's version, that actually is going to have a skin treatment on there, which is a painterly, so more like silkscreen on site. So that's going to give it a little bit of a rusticated look to it. And that'll fit in with the trees and everything there and keep it a little bit more natural and softer. As you wrap the corner into the concourse, there's an existing mural. We are staying completely out of that, and I think our upper left elevation kind of shows the boundaries of how that tenant kind of jogs around there, so we're trying to keep that really clean as well. Keeping on that particular tenant, that corner, it is an existing corner that wraps on a bit of a roll. They have a tile treatment that comes down from the lower 2 feet of their facade and rolls into the walking way. It's kind of decaying right now, so that's being removed, and that's where those planters are going. So it's kind of replaced that, put some space back in there for us. I think that's relatively it.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions of either the applicant or staff? David, did you?
Well, just starting where you ended up, the planters that you're planning for the return, there's a certain base height to the building before the beginning of the window line. So are you matching that window line with the planters, and is it sufficient to provide depth for planters?
It's a sufficient planter. There's actually a landscape architect that belongs, or is in a retainer with the center.
Okay,
And they'll
good.
be looking at all the actual planters.
So it's one step out from your responsibility then?
My responsibility, correct.
Okay. You know, I do
David,
want to say...
there are the planters are on the material sheet, A800. And the heights are listed at like 24 and 30 inches.
Which does match up.
Yeah, it matches up.
Okay.
And the specific plants themselves are being reviewed and proposed by the on-site landscape architect for the
Okay,
shopping
fine.
center.
So actually, we'll see a landscape plan a little later on. Is that what's going to happen with this?
Yes, we recommended approval of the project with the subcommittee requirement for the landscaping to come back.
Okay, because I noticed that there's a dead tree and a dying tree, and so there's really some landscape issues, I think, that yet need to be addressed. Also, the paving is divided between concrete paving and octagonal paving. So we really haven't seen that in this drawing to date, right? So it's yet to come for us to review completely.
I think that's right, David. They've said that the landscape package isn't complete yet. Are there any other questions? Alex, if you could.
Yeah, I have a question about bollards. Yeah.
Can I speak to the hardscape for a second? Yes, existing right now, the hardscape, it's 2 different materials, and they've actually settled different. That's what's been causing a bit of our problems. The new hardscape going in is the same space, same locations, but it's all concrete. So it's going to be all the same materials, so we don't have to have blowout from materials and things adjusting and shuffling over time. And then the tree grades will fill the same spots and hopefully just kind of clean and even surfaces all around.
Okay.
Sorry.
I have a question about bollards. So I think there are some existing illuminated bollards on site.
Correct.
And then I think the plans are showing some new bollards and maybe more of them. And then they're not being shown on any, I don't think we have a cut sheet and nothing showing up on the photometrics. So I'm assuming that they're not illuminated. But I was wondering if you had a thought about what's happening there, because I think you do need something, because it's a curbless condition.
There are bollards, we'll make sure they're illuminated.
Yeah. So and then, so I think maybe I would suggest maybe for the board is that come back to subcommittee for review.
To adjust the photometric to identify those?
Yeah, and then I don't think we have a cut sheet for them.
Okay.
And I think the existing conditions that I see now are, there may be like 4 or 5 illuminated ones, and then there may be 1 or 2 metal poles. And so maybe we just review all of that to make sure that it's all coordinated and it looks good.
Thanks, Alex. Ozma, your question?
I had a question on the patterning, the graphic. In our elevations, we're showing a bigger scale than what's here on the material board, and I just wanted to clarify at what scale is this graphic going to happen at? Is our elevations more accurate, or is this accurate?
The elevations are more accurate. That's really kind of a sample. Even for our own use, this would be mocked up on site, so we can kind of adjust the scale and make sure it's right. It's artist driven, so what you see here is the direction we'll go, and we'll kind of work from there in a mock-up form.
I see. Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, I had one more. My bad. The extra entrance next to the Pacific Catch, next to the melt, which, I haven't seen an elevation of it outlining which materials and which wood and which paint is going on there. Do we have that?
It's in the package.
I thought that was A600.
Yeah, A601.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Then I'll note that I don't have any speaker cards here for members of the public. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on this issue? Okay, then I'll bring the issue back to the board. You gentlemen can sit or stand as you like. Who wants to start us off? David?
Okay, just in general, very nice presentation, with one comment about that. Labels. When you have 3 different stores like this and different drawings, it would be very nice if you had labeled each one so we could relate them one to the next. It's very hard to read the drawings without proper labels. I mean, I think that just to go over a list of items that you worked on here. Starting with the landscaping, the filling in the tree grates, I noticed that there's uplightings under the trees present, and also some electrical boxes within the tree pits, and you have a very nice pattern of a rectangular box-like element that's flat to the paving, which is a big help to pedestrian movement there. But it doesn't really indicate what's going to happen with those particular utilities within the tree grate. So are they cut out of the present existing, or are they cut out of the new grate that's going to be applied, and then
Yes.
it'll be adjusted accordingly to whatever is in there? And is the lighting then going to stay in those locations?
Presently, some of them are damaged. They'll be replaced with new and energy efficient.
So everything that you see, the utilities that are in the tree grate, are going to remain?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's actually, in the daylight, it's not such an attractive thing with the wires going up
Right.
the trees, but, so, I don't know, there might be some further consideration when you work on your landscaping, is how you will electrify the tree lights, and organize them with the trees, and, how you see it during the day, as well as beautiful as it might be at night,
Right.
That's a kind of just a caution that hopefully could come back during our committee meeting. One of my biggest concerns is that the pedestrian movement through this area. We've talked about it at Pacific Catch when we were reviewing that project, and it's still a consideration because it's a sort of a dense collection of trees and seating arrangements. There is a kind of a limited area between the trees where you can possibly walk. So if you walk kind of in front of Pacific Catch, it's a wider area. And then with Sagonis's, well, at night, if they pull it in, it's going to be much more space. But during the day, they've taken up a lot of the plaza area. So hopefully in a future plan, you could sort of, maybe the whole shopping center could work on this thought about how movement is through that area to keep it open. It could certainly be improved by reducing the number of seats, since you've already provided passage over the tree grate area, and it isn't a trip hazard anymore.
Right.
Then consider the flow of traffic through. Also consider how people will get to their car from there, because instead of having to jog one way or another, look at the crosswalk relationship there as well. I think that becomes very significant at that intersection. it's quite a nice place to come to the mall, you know. As one of the entries, I've really always enjoyed it, because of the variety of commercial at that particular location, and having it becoming a market area is nice. And it's going to be even improved, I think, with the Pacific Catch and the attraction of that retailer. But therefore, all the more important to consider how the traffic moves through the area, the pedestrian traffic. I like the lighting improvements. I think the fact that you're putting lighting at the end of the canopies and it's going to light further out into the plazas are really great improvement. And I had a question before about how the lighting fixtures are the ones that are there in the plaza, the high ones, they're going to remain?
They're going to remain.
Those exact ones will remain. I guess that's acceptable, you know. That,
They'll be cleaned up and refurbished, yeah.
yeah, okay. So, moving on to, I am concerned that, you know, if you looked at your section, some of the light fixtures, although I really like the idea of low light fixtures, sconces on the buildings, these are going to be 9 feet high, 8 or 9 feet above. They're fairly low. You know, if you consider people moving and tall people moving by and maintenance of those, I'm just, without wanting to see them removed somehow, I'd like some assurance from for your own sake that somebody tall won't come along and damage those, you know, that area. It's a consideration, you know, but it's nice to have them low. I mean, I really like that. I noticed that there's air conditionings on Sagonis's door frames there, so it won't look as clean as what you've drawn, or how will you deal with the air? There's an air door machinery that they have installed there. What will happen with that?
The air curtains are being proposed to be put inside the building, so they will no longer be on the exterior of the building.
Excellent. Yeah, that'll help clean up that facade tremendously. I noticed, I think there's a kind of an error in one of your section drawings here. Well, I can't see it right now. It's sort of looking one way and not looking the other way. Just, you go back and take a look. It just seems like it shows the wood patterning coming down lower than the section would show it. But whatever, you know, the patterning is clear enough if you go back and rethink it as a reviewer, where it is with the patterning of the wood above, which I think is excellently done, by the way. And such an improvement to the whole corner.
Yeah, thank you.
So, I mean, I think all the colors are kind of muted, the way you described them. And I like the effect of that. I think it's a very big improvement. Had some other thoughts. Hold on a second here. Well, on the Coca-Cola Bakery, so it would have been so much nicer to see a demo drawing in some way to see how you progressed from the rounded front of everything to the flatter look, which we're not getting in a large enough scale to really understand it. So, but looking a little more detailed, I think it comes across. So in the sample panel, you have that as what does CON01 stand for then, the thicker stone?
That's concrete, yes.
That's a concrete panel that's going to go all the way up the
No, that's following the column line.
following the column
and
line.
like a portal around.
But
yes.
rectangular now, not
Right.
rounded.
Right.
So all of that facade is being stripped off and replaced with a rectangular.
The inset facade is where the
Inset.
arch is,
Yeah,
and that gets
and
cleaned.
it's a single inset in the middle of it, huh?
Yeah.
And that's where the light fixtures are. The inset.
601.
I don't know if there's no
Oh, you're on, I'm sorry, you're on Coca-Cola?
Yeah. Well, I see them on the drawing on A400.
400. Yeah, it's a perimeter that goes around, follows the column lines.
Yeah.
It's like a portal.
That's nice. It keeps the same kind of look, but makes it a rectangular.
Right, exactly.
I think that's quite successful. Let's see. I have a few more thoughts here. Well, you know, in terms of the planters, you know, I think there was a comment made, they're awfully small and they're really only going to take a single plant in each one. The ones in front of Schaub's, they certainly look kind of fussy to me when you have larger planters around Segonis that seem to work rather well. Of course, Segonis is now going to lose a little of their area in the front, which at present is melon season there. So, but it's a nice return with the planters, I think, in front, and I don't know how those things get adjusted in the shopping center, but I agree that it's a better way to do it, have it turn the corner there and give a little bit more elegance to an area that gets a bit sloppy with all of the fruit vending stuff out there. You know, in that respect, it sort of makes me think that maybe the areas that are pulled out are not part of the design effort really by themselves, that the sort of the stuff that all that fruit and stuff is sitting on is not a design issue, I guess. And whatever Segonis tends to want to put out there, they'll be allowed to do so. You know, we can't get too fussy, I suppose, about how a commercial tenant uses their space like that.
So, Board Member Hirsch, if I may. David, just related, you were asking about pedestrian traffic ways, and then, you know, now you're sort of talking about the sort of outside market area. And I think some of the discussion we had with Pacific Catch was that we wanted sort of an 8-foot walkway, sort of free and clear of obstructions. And so it would be good for the board to, you know, discuss, maybe we should be doing the same thing here, and just where that area might be. Is it just in front of, you know, Segona's, because we already have maybe a walkway in front of Pacific Catch, so if we just have kind of the 2 walkways, maybe that would be good enough. But if we can talk about that. And then you were saying something about a dead tree, so I didn't know where that was located. Is that just in the plaza area, or?
No, it was, I noted it. Yeah, it's more closer to Schaub's. Well,
Okay.
I think, you know, there has to be some coordination between the shopping center and facade design. You know, I know they're 2 kind of distinct things. And so, you know, I'm sure the shopping center has been doing some excellent work.
And we'll have the arborist look at the tree out
Great.
there on site
I'm
and
sure
confirm
you
if
will.
it's
Yeah.
dead or if it needs.
Yes. Now, as to the walkways, it really can't be kind of in front of the 2 retail storefronts that easily because of the way Segonis places its exterior uses into that plaza. There would be too much of a jog, really, at that point in order to make that work effectively. So I think the shopping center could come to us, and I think that distances, as mentioned, is a good basis on which to analyze that.
And we are going to maintain an 8-foot clear space from the edge of any of the farmer's market that gets
Yes.
pushed out to light standards and the actual trees themselves. So there will be an 8-foot clear maintained.
8 foot clear through the trees? Or
No, the trees are existing But from the edge of the display area
Uh-huh.
to any obstructions, we're going to maintain an 8-foot clear. And then the main path of travel along the corridor where Pacific Catch is, they're maintaining a clear path there as well.
Well, what I saw, however, is that when you put the furniture out there, that there is no 8-foot clear area.
Correct, through the furniture areas, but around the perimeter, the edges up against the markets itself, they're going to keep an 8-foot clear.
Yes, but you know, when you travel that, you have to take quite a jog to get around there to really get in front of Schaub's, and I don't know, it's just not comfortable. I think if you really blow that up at a larger scale and really think about how people are moving, you'll question it and perhaps reduce the amount of seating in the plaza to make it work.
Yeah, we could provide a drawing of that as well, you know, with red lines to kind of show where the flow is.
Yes.
Right now with those landscape pockets around the trees,
Yes.
they've fallen enough that you can't have chairs and tables overlap that.
Yes.
So all the furniture is actually pushed into the hard surfaces, which is not ideal. So once this new stuff is all set up, it'll make it a lot more flexible for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
We'll
accept.
provide a drawing that shows the flow,
Okay.
the intended flow.
okay. So, you know, another thing about is the drainage and the watering for those trees. How is that done? I mean, this is a landscape issue, but I don't want it left to the very, very end here. Because if the trees are not living, or, you know, your arborists tell you you need something for that.
There's a full-time maintenance crew at the shopping center that maintains the trees as well as all the planters in the shopping center.
Well, of course, the planting looks fabulous all the time over there, and so I'm expecting that you'll take a look at this one and it'll look as good at some point. Well, that's all my comments I have. Thank you very much. I just want to say thank you for the presentation, with a caution that we'd love labels and to make some of the text bigger so we could actually read it. I know that we can probably blow it up ourselves on our computers, but sometimes emphasis on, you know, for example, all of these samples here, when there are 3 different facades, should be clearly delineated so we can make that comparisons.
Thank you, David. Alex?
Great, thank you for your presentation. I think the design is very handsome. I think you've worked really hard to sort of differentiate each storefront, but also fit it in with the new Pacific Catch. So I think that's actually very successful. So I can recommend approval. And then I think in addition to the staff conditions of approval, I think I would add that we look at the bollard, especially if it's illuminated. And I do support the condition of approval to review the landscaping. I do support the staff's recommended addition of bike racks at near Schaub's. And I think that's all that I have. And I think that's all that I have. So that's where I am.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alex. Ozma?
Hi there. Thank you for your presentation. Well, I will get right into it. So the detailing of the wood slats gives me a little cause for concern. The material that you've presented here is a laminate that has, like the edges are showing black, and the detail that you've drawn doesn't really show exactly which side the black edges are, if it's up, down, or left, right. Kind of makes me wonder, regardless, you know, why wouldn't you go with a real wood that you could see from all sides? I mean, really what's important is from the pedestrian eye that you're seeing it from underneath, and then also all the sides. And I don't know how that laminate's going to get that effect for you. So for the wood, I feel like for the HPL, which is the light colored wood that's underneath the awnings, that one can be detailed with the awning that you've selected, so that the black edges are not so visible. But everywhere else that you have a trellis, I think that detail is actually really crucial because, what you have right now in that area of the shopping center that's really nice is you have a lot of relief. You've got, the arches that are providing this depth, and then you have these like gigantic awnings that are super cozy. They have this breadth of space and relief. And the design that we're looking at today, takes away a lot of that. There's a lot of flat planes, and I see that you're attempting to get the things that are giving you the relief are the wood trellis and your concrete at the cocolas, your concrete pilasters. But, if those things aren't detailed right, you're going to just get a really super flat facade that might lose a lot of the complexity and detail and coziness that's currently there. Despite the sort of grubbiness, that's really crucial, and I think you want that also for that area. So I feel like if we do go to subcommittee, that's really important. I think that material for the wood trellis and if you're changing it to a real wood, I understand there's maintenance issues with that, but there's also an aesthetic issue with the wood that you have right now. So I'm not really sold on that material right now. Also with the patterning of Schwab's, I really like the design concept for that. I do agree that maybe that scale is too small, and I'm not sure if what you have right now is the right scale. It might be too large. I think you're right. The mock-up will definitely make that real. But what I think is important about that is that granularity that kind of gives it that sort of human scale that makes it really nice to interact with on the ground. So I appreciate the design intent for that. So those were kind of my two main items. I'm a little, and I'm not sure how the rest of the board feels about this. I'm a little concerned about Schwab just being really quite dark. And I don't know if there's enough contrast to make it seem lighter. I'm a little worried that the color scheme is too dark for the area. So I'll just put that out there. I don't know if it's a deal breaker for me, but it does give me worry. Even right now, looking at the elevations, the signage is really muddy. It's a little hard to see. There's no saying that wouldn't also happen in real life when you actually build this. If you're using a dark lettering on something that's kind of black, and I wonder if there needs to be a bit more contrast with the Schwab, with the Schwab palette. Okay, I'll leave it there. Sorry, one more thing. The contrast of wood colors. So in the Coca-Cola Bakery, you have the lighter color wood, which I think makes sense for that palette. I noticed that in the Sagona's palette, you're using that wood and the dark wood. You're using the dark wood on the wall and then the light wood underneath, and they touch. There's kind of that place where the Sagona sign comes down. And I don't know that that's the best use of that. I don't know. It might be worth rethinking, but that might change if you change the wood slat design. So anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ozma. I confess my first thought about this whole project was, geez, this plaza really does look a little bit run down. So I hand it to you guys for taking the initiative to improve it. It never really crossed my mind before. I've been through it 100 times, and it's a wonderful space. But sitting there, the tree grates are a hazard. The buildings do look tired, so it's great that you're wanting to do something. I'd like to call my colleagues' attention to the fact that it seems to me that the bicycle racks are a great idea, and we really ought to have more than just 3 additional bike stores. Is that what you're proposing, Sam? Is that they add 3 spaces on the right-hand side?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's just 3 on the right-hand
So
side.
it seems to me that this is a time where we might get a substantially bigger amount of bike storage if possible.
Three racks means 6 spaces.
Correct.
6 spaces, okay.
Yes.
So that's better.
A bike is on each side of each rack. Yes.
Okay, and the Pacific Catches, how many will be on that side in front of their restaurant now?
I believe there's at least 6, maybe 9. There's a detail of it in the plan. One moment.
I want to say 10, I'm not sure.
It's on the plans.
I think I saw 2 racks of 6 on the plans to the left of Pacific Catch as you're facing it.
There's 10 on
10 there,
sheet
okay.
A601, so that would be capacity for 20 bikes.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better then, okay. So I misread the thing. It seems to me that the bicycle parking is important. This is a really critical entrance, and so I'd like to see us address that. My other thought, looking at this, I generally agree with what everybody said, but coming back to David's concerns about the pedestrian circulation, is that I think the planters in front of Shaw's at the corner there, maybe they're a nice design idea, but I think they impede on the circulation. And probably they're also just really making it more difficult for the market to operate. They're always seeming to have carts of melons and things like that there. And it seems to me we'd be better without any planters whatsoever there. And perhaps in front of Schwab's too, where they just have very small, sort of fussy-looking planters. The plaza is full of trees as it is, and it's such a bustling area. I'd like to hear my colleagues, perhaps we don't need those planters at all. So those are my 2 thoughts. I do agree with Ozma's comment about the use of the wood laminate as probably not the right material because it is very one-dimensional. And she made some very clever points about the relief and why that plaza has such a character to it. And I think it'd be wise to reconsider that. Counter to Ozma's comment about the dark frame, I rather like it actually, Ozma. I found that most of the colors on this proposal seem a little bit muted and sort of flat and restrained. And that dark frame with the interesting graphic pattern in front of it, I think is going to be dramatic. And a little bit of drama, I think, is a good thing here. So it is dark, but I'm sort of enjoying the way it looks, at least in the renderings. So do my colleagues have any additional comments responding to each other or anything else?
I did want to follow up on the wood slats, the faux wood slats. So there is, I would point to a project at Stanford. There's the Mayfield Housing on California Avenue. There's 2 multifamily buildings there, and right at the entrance there is a wood laminate slat entry system there. And I think you're right. The end grain is the giveaway, and that's the weakness of the material. In this case, I think they're using fairly small elements and they're high up, so I'm not quite as worried about it as if it were really right at the entry, like an entry door. I think the other issue that's come up before, though, here in downtown is that a lot of times the building department won't allow the wood, like real wood, because it's combustible. So there are code issues with use of wood. And then I think the board has brought up many times before that natural wood is really high maintenance. It's like too high maintenance, I would argue, for commercial application. So I don't necessarily support changing the material, but I do understand the concern about the detailing with that. I think it does help that they're in this location, that they're high up and they're not at eye level. And then I think Peter, your comment about the planters. And I think I can go either way. I think I would just argue with on the planting palette that I think it's going to be tricky. They're in shade. I think it might be tricky to do a native planting palette there in planters. And I think like former board member Firth had been pushing for native planting at Pacific Catch. And I didn't necessarily agree with that. I think we should just try to get wildlife friendly planting. Yeah, I think you can pick plants carefully. I think in this location though it's going to be trickier than at Pacific Catch. Just because it's like you're trying to do dry shade, there's much fewer plant options than if it were in the sun. So anyway, I can recommend approval today. I'm happy if you guys want more details to come back. I think I'm fine with that.
David, any other ideas?
Yes, I noticed when Segonis turns the corner there, that there's this area that is at the top of the window that's recessed, and it's in sort of a light panel, and it ends before the glass ending there. It sort of ends with a curve up to it, and I notice you're bringing all of the slats down over that area, so you're going to be covering it, and it is going to be painted a darker or whatever, treated a little differently. But what exactly is happening at the window line there? Because it really ought to continue all the way across. Will you be carrying the fascia piece that's set back all the way across that window?
It's an existing window, and it actually rolls that corner.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about the corner itself. I'm talking about the other end of that, the left-hand end.
Down here? Oh, it's just a different stucco
Sheet
tone.
901?
Yeah, it's a different stucco
Piece
tone.
of sheet metal, right, exactly. Some piece of sheet metal piece that just doesn't go continuously to the, if you look at your rendering in A901, it just doesn't go above the man who's walking with the bags, above his head. It just doesn't go all the way over to that wall. It ends with a sort of in front of a piece of glass that comes up.
That might be a modeling flaw in our rendering. I'll check into that, though, for sure.
Yeah, okay. So, but I appreciate the fact that you're bringing that trellis, what do you call it? The wood frame pieces all the way down. And I really want to compliment you at not letting the top of the building just be yet another wasted piece of whatever visually, and that you carry that all the way through, because that scale is kind of critical to the way in which the facade, you treat the facades. So, I want to represent that although I agree with Ozma about some of the color treatment of it could be lightened up a bit, that on the other hand, I think that the overall palette is pretty good in the fact that you've considered those parapet areas, up high, a part of the design here. And it sets that corner so that there makes a nice transition, in particular on A901, where you're now looking at the historic facade treatment further up, and make a neutral, you keep that neutral on the way to getting to that piece of work that's on the wall, which is so much fun for the entry there. But I just wanted to bring that particular detail to your mind, because carrying the wood slats down is a good idea, but what if the piece you're covering doesn't extend all the way? Take a look at that, please. And again, just my major concern really somehow ended up in the way in which the plaza flows more than the facades, which I think are well done.
So I'd like to bring us to two issues I think we want to be sure are addressed. So the circulation you're talking about, David, if we all look at rendering A901, that's the corner of Segonas, I think we should ask ourselves whether those planters really are appropriate at all at that location. It seems to me that they're impeding the circulation of the pathway past it, and then they also block the storefront for the merchant. I'd like to hear everybody's opinion on that. Alex already addressed it. And I'd also like to hear what the applicant thinks. Are those planters something you put in because you think they're necessary or because you really want them there? So why don't we do the board first? Sure. Ozma, what do you think about them?
If we can also take a look at the site plan, which is A102, because we do have in front of Segonas, there is sort of I don't know if it's a rectangle or a triangle shape, but there is a lease area for the outdoor market. So the use of that area extends beyond the facade, and maybe the applicant can better explain that.
I see, Jody, so you're saying on A102, the shaded blue area is the lease area in front of Segonas?
No, the blue area
Shaw's?
is just the canopy. There's a line further than that.
Oh, I see, that's the, okay.
This is the extent of
And our concern is that the lease area restricts the traffic too much? I've heard you several times bring that up.
I don't know that it's too much, but it definitely does restrict traffic. And so what I'm thinking is outside of that, I mean, there's sort of an outdoor market that goes with Segona's. And so I'm thinking that the 8 feet would be around the outdoor market.
That is correct. An 8-foot clearance would be maintained around that market area once they put out their goods and their carts.
Yeah, I think some of the confusion is that they frequently seem to exceed their lease area, and it's all quaint and beautiful European vegetable market, but it does get into the way of walking past it.
Yeah. And so potentially that's something that we can, the hardscape is being redone, and so maybe there can be some markers put into that hardscape to delineate that space. And, maybe it's just small corner markers or something of that nature.
It seems like a reasonable idea. Okay, so we're discussing the issues of the circulation going through and around that corner and such. Osman, what did you think?
I actually like the planters where they are. Sorry to disagree, but I think, again, like this is a cozy spot, and the change in the facades is going to make it less cozy. That's just a reality of it. And so adding more green and I think it's worthwhile. I think it'll enhance the area. I don't think it'll take away.
Did you want to add something to that, David?
Yeah, no, I think the planters are useful because they create a little separation between the base, which is really rather boring, and the window display, which is always fascinating there with that store. So I think it's a softening of the corner, and I think it's, in a way, it kind of leads to, when you're looking down here, because there's no other planters in the middle here, leads to coming to an area of nature around the corner. And I think it just softens the corner at the base. It's an interesting window return with that curve happening at that point. And I'm happy to see that the chamfered wall is removed, and I think you need something in its place. So I'm okay with the planters. It gets kind of tight with cupola across the way at that point. And there's no drawing that shows what cupola is going to be putting when they put their furniture out there. So once again, if their furniture is way out, it's going to create a tighter junction. So I think maybe the shopping center should consider how to hold them back a little bit with their seating in order to make that a comfortable corner for pedestrians. But just to reflect on that, I do like the planters. I think they serve a useful purpose at that corner.
So I had offered the applicant a chance to address the same question, though it seems like the planters are going to stay. Any thoughts additional to that, or are we?
Just quick history. I mean, it was, we weren't doing the hardscape at first, and that chamfer that came down was, again, decaying. So when you remove it, it was bare underneath there, so we were going to put in a built-in planter, and then it became a bit of an issue tying that into some of the older structure, and it went with just, loose planters.
Okay, thank you.
We liked the idea the same way, just the wall came down, it broke down the mass a little bit and added a bit more green.
And as far as the seating is concerned, along the bakery there, I think currently they have a couple four-tops out there, and which really kind of restrict the amount of space that it comes out from that wall. And they would still maintain that area, but we would keep an 8-foot clear, and we can identify that in the drawing set if that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. So is the board, though, in consensus of perhaps requesting some sort of paving pattern or some other detailing to reflect the leasehold area for the market for Segona's, as Jody mentioned, might be a good idea? And is the applicant, again, is that something you can support?
I would think, since it's all new concrete, we could pour in a potential lease line, like a constraint for them. That shouldn't be an issue. An impressed line, not a trip hazard.
Provide some markers.
Yeah.
And to the board, though, is that something we think should be done? I mean, this is a legal definition, and sometimes maybe the overreach by Segona's adds to the coziness, right?
I'd be in support of that if it was done artfully. I'm a little nervous about just saying throw anything out there, but the floor pattern paving is a great opportunity for something really awesome. And right now there is something really interesting down there, and with how the trees are kind of framed, and so I'm actually all for enhancing the floor pattern paving if it serves dual purposes. That would be good.
I think we need to
So I just comment that the plans say that the existing paving is to remain. So I think we have a discrepancy here.
The question I think is really, can the shopping center enforce the line in some way? I think it's an area that is for everybody's use, it's a public area, and as such, it really shouldn't have specific markers in it like that, because it changes the impact of the whole thing. When those, in the evening, when they take those things down, late night shopping would still continue. I'm not quite sure about the timing of when they bring their fruit and vegetables in the market there, but unless it's designated to them and they maintain something out there all the time, I think it should be something that the shopping center enforces. This is the line, and my feeling is I wouldn't want to see a separate marker.
Thank you, David. I wonder if we could get some clarification as to the extent of the pavement replacement from the applicant. There's some confusion up here, at least.
Page 103, A103.
Yes. So that light red pochette area with the heavy red dashed line around it, is
Red
that?
dash line is the extreme limits, yes.
So everything within that red dashed area is new pavement?
Yes, correct.
Okay, I think that's what we've been assuming, so it's good to have that out there.
And is the new pavement the square pattern that we're looking at?
That is the actual, the score line pattern that you
Is it
see,
score
yes.
lines? Okay.
So-
So what we're discussing is potentially changing that score pattern or the design down here.
I think for a particular tenant, and I'll just speak, I'm not a landlord, but I've been in the retail environment for quite a bit, is if you do something special, like too special, and that tenant becomes something different, then you end up with something maybe unintended for a fashion tenant or somebody down the road, you know what I'm saying? I think we can discreetly put some markers in there that kind of like define an area, and there's a collaboration with the tenant. They'll know when they're breaching that line or not.
So what I've heard is David was not in favor of a permanent mark. Osmo only so if it was done artfully. Alex, did you have a?
I don't have a preference.
And I don't have a preference. To me, that's an individual owner's decision how they want to enforce it. I think it's a good idea, Jody, but it is permanent. This is concrete.
If I can add just a little bit, the amount of product this tenant brings out there, that's your texture, that's your defining line. That's what really reads very different, right? So I think that helps. We'll be basically doing an alternate material and covering it.
Staff is hopeful that clearer delineation will result in better enforcement.
Yes.
Which is her goal.
Agreed.
And it is justifiably an issue. It's a cozy plaza, but there's a lot of people walking through it. That's what all our hesitation and hemming and hawing is about. But what I've heard from the board is that we really need to see the details of the landscaping come back, perhaps on consent calendar. Let's address the other issue Osma brought up, which was, and David as well, some of the detailing of the building, the wood slats and the trellises and stuff. Is that something the applicant would feel comfortable putting together more details and reconsidering the wood slats and coming back on a consent
Absolutely,
on a subcommittee?
yes. If I could say, the horizontal slats, that's exactly the reasons for being combustible. That simple detailing between, that dark line goes away over height, but it's how you treat that exterior edge that makes it look like it still has a real thickness, like real wood. The facade work, we'll look at that again for you and define it a little bit clearer.
I think
We agree with you for there. It has to look authentic.
we have tremendous regard for your capacity, but would like to see just some evidence that that's
Sure.
going to look correct. I think that's fair to say. Nobody's saying it should be natural wood, perhaps. But, okay, with those two, are we ready for a motion then? Who wants to give it a stab?
I
David?
can summarize if need be.
Why don't you do that, Jody, please?
Okay. So what I was hearing is that we'd like to see the 8-foot clear for pedestrians, that there would be a walkway in front of Pacific Catch, and that there would also be a walkway in front of Sagona's and Schwab's, sort of going that way. So there'd be 2 different 8-foot clear pathways. Potentially some corner markers, so that we know how far out the Sagona's Market should be, but we'll kind of test out.
Extremely discreet.
Yes, yes. I mean, I'm thinking, the surveyor little dots, really. And then we had some conversation about the wood slats. We'd like some additional details about how those end pieces are going to look. If there's maybe a different material, we'll look into that detail. Bike racks, I think it sounds like we have sufficient bike racks, but we don't have the details for those. I think the shopping center has a standard, so that'll be a quick fix. The landscaping plan, we need all that goes with the landscaping plan. The bollard details, we need those, and potentially, any photometrics that come with that. Related to the landscape plan, we understand that given it's a shaded area, maybe it's not going to be fully native, but we'll, do wildlife-friendly planting. The darker trim, it sounded like there wasn't consensus on that, so maybe we'll leave the darker trim for Schwab's alone. There was a question about the sconces being 9 feet, that maybe that was too low. So I don't know if we want to include some further review about the sconces. And Board Member Hirsch had conversations about the uplighting in the tree grates, that kind of area. I don't know if we need to look at that further. That was it.
So who wants to make a motion? Let's get this done.
I will make a motion that we approve the project with, let's see, we've got Jody's 6, I'm going to say, you listed 9 potential items, and so I think my motion is to include the first 6.
So
So
circulation.
circulation, the corner
markers.
marker, review, or
Wood
review,
slats.
as they consider the wood slat detailing. And we say that it's a faux wood slat detailing, right? Bike rack cut sheet, submit the landscape plan, bollards, cut sheets, and photometric. And then, so with regard to item 7, the dark color, which is the paint number 12, I would suggest that the board, if the board has concerns about that, the subcommittee could review it on site, like the pattern of the stenciling, but also the color of the number 12. You could review that on site if you want. I think this sconce height seems normal to me. I think that's fairly typical. And then the uplight, the existing tree uplights, I think that there isn't a cut sheet in the packet, but I think if the applicant is saying that those are being refurbished, then we can just put that in as noted, that those are just existing fixtures that are going to be reworked. So I think the motion is just for the first 6 items.
Okay, so moved. Anyone want to second that?
I have a question. So is the paint 12 also part of the review and subcommittee?
I haven't included that, but I'm throwing it up to you, because it depends on how you want to do it.
Let's get the motion seconded, and then we can make amendments.
Yeah, you can amend
So
it.
I will second that motion. Does anybody want to make an amendment? Why don't you try?
Okay, can I make an amendment that we review paint 12? And, sorry, this is a quick question to the applicant. The coloring is paint 12 over paint 2, correct? Maybe just a bit more detailing on Schwab.
I will accept the amendment.
Okay, that's fine with me as well. So we're going to add the 7th item, which is regarding having the portal frame color and the patterning come back to the subcommittee as well.
I would add the amendment, add to the amendment the uplighting in the planters, because it's more than just uplighting. There's electrical boxes, they're quite large and interrupt.
So let's be specific though, David. What are we asking them to do in that
What
amendment?
exactly one of Jody's lists, I'd like to keep it in.
What are
to
we
review.
asking them to do regarding the uplighting?
Sorry?
What are we asking them to do regarding the uplighting that's existing in
Show
the trees?
exactly how it interrupts or will
So just more-
interrupt all of the elements that are part of the planting box.
I will accept that.
You will accept that?
To me, it's a coordination issue. Look, I looked at the utilities yesterday. I saw them, and I thought about, considered that in the tree grates and stuff, and I think that's just part of being an architect and working with a contractor. I don't really know what the board can do about that, just saying that it is a concern that we have. But,
Fine.
yeah.
Okay, so the uplighting in the trees will also come back to the subcommittee with further detail of how that's going to be executed?
Is that you
That's-
seconding?
I agree with that as
Okay.
well, so let's put that on the
Okay, so 2 friendly amendments.
2 friendly amendments. With that, we're ready to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much, Dan.
Okay, thank you very much.
And just, I'm confirming this is approved with subcommittee, correct?
To the subcommittee, yes, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, why don't we get done? We have, I wanted to hear from Alex, but first we have minutes from August 1st. Do we have any comments? Otherwise, anyone willing to make a motion for us?
I will move that we approve the minutes for August 1st.
Second that?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We don't have any subcommittee items today. Next item is a report from Board Member Liu regarding the North Ventura Coordinated Area Plan, and I'm hoping you have something to bring to us today about that, Alex.
Yes, so on August 19th, the City Council reviewed the additional services proposal from staff, and it passed on a 4-3 vote, so it was pretty close. The additional services were for the historic component of the project, and both adding to the scope, right? The council agreed to add the historic review as one of the goals of the project and the funding for that. And then also there was additional services for the creek to try to enhance the concrete channel into making it something more wildlife and naturalistic. And so that was on the 19th, and then that same week there was the committee meeting here at City Hall that was not well attended by the committee. And that was the first meeting that we've had since May. But the meetings are going to resume, and I think the next one is on the 21st, I think? Let me see. Or the 19th. No. Sorry. Let me get that. Oops. Here, hold on a second. Let me get the meeting. I have the meeting here, meeting here date somewhere here. And then also on August 19th, the council did interview A or B candidates, and they will be voting on that next Monday.
So regarding the Ventura plan, I'm just curious if we have any more content that you can report back to us on what the group has been doing, but I guess I hear you saying there's just nothing.
The group has not met since May. It's been on hold.
I have something to add to that. We The major issue that really has come up is that Fry's, as being a potentially historic structure or historic story about Palo Alto, there's more of a push at this point to maintain the building. And that's a really ambiguous issue now, whether you maintain the building or maintain the cultural idea of it in some symbolic way. Everybody has been stating that a plaque is just not symbolic and that something more significant has to be presented and somehow in this whole project in order for that cultural history to be maintained on the site. And that's a big open question because, of course, there are those who are promoting keeping the whole Fry's building, which is most of the site. And in fact, that raises big issues with the development concept here because, of course, Fry's building would preclude the usefulness as a real housing site. So that conflict is going to kind of go on for probably quite a long time. And so now they've sort of proposed that we're talking about a 10 or 20 year period of time between now and when anything could happen to that site, which is quite a big issue because it's one of the last two really remaining major sites in the whole city that could afford significant housing. So that just seems to be the major issue of the project at this point. I mean, I think that as it affects us in some way, it has to do with how historical buildings or buildings that represent some historical cultural factor for Palo Alto, how they affect the future of Palo Alto. Since we are under pressure to provide housing here, what do we do? Do we respond to that issue ourselves in some way?
Okay, I think that's noted to Alex that that's an issue, right?
So I think yes, I mean, so I think the issue, there is an issue about the founder of the cannery. And then I think the other thing is that the Chinese owner of that died, and the cannery continued afterwards for many years and expanded after that. So, and the building was built over time. It was not just built, it's not just one big building. It's a conglomeration of many buildings added over time. And then I think the other issue is that the NVCAP is a long-term zoning change. It's not a short-term document. And the boundary of the site is much larger than the Fry's site. So there's still other possibilities that can happen in the area to add housing. So anyway, it's going to be, but I think David's right. It's going to come down to like no growth, people using the historic issue as a wedge topic, and I think there are going to be advocates for housing that are going to push for more housing, and that's the Palo Alto process. Yeah, and the meeting we have the best model is I think that people are happy with is the SOFA project on the old Palo Alto Medical Clinic, and I think generally people are happy with that project. And the next meeting tentatively is set for September 24th here at City Hall in the lobby conference room.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to hearing further feedback on that issue. Anything else? Okay, with that, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.